A thug storms into a bar and notices a man sitting alone, staring at his beer and sobbing. Without hesitation, the thug walks up, shoves the man off his stool, slaps him twice, downs his beer in one gulp, and sneers. "What's your problem, crybaby? A couple of slaps and you're weeping like a child? Maybe if your parents had given you a few more growing up, you wouldn't be such a mess." The man looks up, tears streaming down his face. "You don't understand," he chokes out. "That beer. It was supposed to be my last." The thug rolls his eyes. "Oh, great, another drama king." The man continues, voice cracking. "My wife cheated on me with my best friend. Lied in court to get full custody of the kids. The judge bought it. Haven't seen them since. Then my brother drove my parents to church. Head-on collision, all three gone. I spiraled. My boss fired me. Just in case I became a liability. I lost my home. My dog, my only companion, was taken by animal rights activists for being neglected. I tried to end it. Jumped off a bridge, landed on a passing truck full of pillows. Tried to hang myself. The rope snapped. Poured gasoline over myself. Lighter didn't work. Jumped in front of a car. Just broke some ribs. Tried a truck, but I'm too short. It passed clean over me. I walked north to freeze to death. Heat wave. Starved myself. Collapsed and got rescued by a northern tribe. I told their chief everything. He gave me a sacred powder. Said it would bring me peace. Guaranteed. So I put it in my beer. I was finally ready. And then you drank it. A man walks into a strip club. He spots a vacant seat right in the front row and quickly grabs it. Just as the first dancer struts on stage, the guy sitting behind him yells, "Yeah, baby, that's what I came for." The man in front turns around and gives him a look. A moment later, the dancer rips off her top, revealing glittery pasties. The guy behind him shouts, "Shake it, girl, that's the stuff." Annoyed, the man turns and says, "Hey, could you tone it down?" Then the dancer whips off her dress, leaving nothing but a tiny G-string. Again, the guy behind him hollers, "Oh yeah, we're almost there." The man snaps, "Dude, can you just shut up already?" Finally, the dancer slides to the floor, pulls off everything, and the place goes wild except for the loud guy. He's suddenly silent. Puzzled, the man turns around and asks, "Hey, what happened to all that enthusiasm?" And the guy leans in and mutters, "It's all over your back, man." A man walks out of his office during a thunderstorm. Rain's pouring, wind's howling, but right there in front of him is an empty taxi. He jumps in and says, "Wow, what luck, getting a cab in this weather." The cabbie glances at him and replies, "You've got perfect timing, just like Sheldon." Sheldon? Yeah, Sheldon Schwartz. That guy had timing like a Swiss watch. Everything in his life worked out perfectly. He always found a parking spot right in front of the building, every time. Oh, come on, no one's that lucky. Sheldon was, the cabbie insists. He could have gone pro in tennis or golf, maybe both. Had a voice like Pavarotti, only better. Looked like Cary Grant, dressed like James Bond. Women adored him and men wanted to be him. And the guy was brilliant. Knew everything about everything. Could fix anything, build anything, and he told the best stories. Life of the party, the passenger chuckles. You're laying it on a bit thick, aren't you? Not at all. The man was a legend, and he was a genius in business. Every idea turned into gold. Plus, he was, well, let's just say his wife always looked very, very satisfied. Okay, enough already, laughs the passenger. So how do you know this Sheldon guy? Oh, I never met him, the cabbie says, glancing in the rearview mirror. Then how do you know all this? The cabbie shrugs. After he died, I married his wife. A young girl was writing a paper for school when she asked her father, "Dad, what's the difference between anger and exasperation?" The father smiled. "It's mostly a matter of degree. Let me show you." He picked up the phone and dialed a random number. A gruff voice answered, "Hello?" The father said, "Hi, is Melvin there?" "There's no Melvin here. You've got the wrong number." The man snapped and hung up. The father turned to his daughter. Now that was irritation. Watch this. He redialed the same number. "Hello?" The man barked. "Yeah, is Melvin there?" "I just told you, there's no Melvin here. Are you stupid or something?" Click. The father nodded. That was anger. Now, let's try exasperation. He dialed again. The phone picked up instantly. "What do you want?" The father replied calmly, "Hi, this is Melvin. Have there been any messages for me?" A woman goes to see her doctor and says, "Doctor, I don't know what to do. My husband flies off the handle at the smallest things. He's always yelling, losing his temper. It's exhausting." The doctor nods thoughtfully and says, "All right, here's a simple technique I want you to try. The next time he starts getting angry, go to the kitchen, pour yourself a glass of water, take a sip, and swish it around in your mouth. Don't swallow it, just keep swishing until he calms down." The woman looks puzzled. "Swish water." "Exactly. Every time he starts to blow up, just swish." 2 weeks later, she's back at the clinic looking amazed. "Doctor, that water trick you gave me, absolute miracle. Every time he got heated, I ran to the kitchen, took a swig, swished away, and boom, he cooled right down." "How does that work?" The doctor smiles and says, "Oh, it's not the water, it's just that keeping your mouth shut seems to help a lot." A married couple goes to the hospital for the delivery of their baby. The doctor greets them and says, "I've developed a new machine that can transfer a portion of the mother's labor pain to the father. Would you like to give it a try?" Both excited by the idea, they agree. The doctor starts by setting the machine to transfer 10% of the pain to the father, explaining that even 10% might be more pain than he's ever experienced. As the labor continues, the husband feels perfectly fine. He looks at the doctor and says, "Go ahead and turn it up a bit." So, the doctor increases the transfer to 20%. Still, the husband feels nothing. Amazed by how well he's handling it, the doctor checks his vitals, then decides to go for 50%. And the husband's still fine, and the wife is virtually pain-free. Seeing that the pain transfer is helping her so much, the husband insists, "Go ahead, give me the full 100%. Let's get her through this without any pain." The doctor complies, setting the machine to 100%. The wife delivers a healthy baby with barely a hint of discomfort. Both the mother and father are ecstatic. When they arrive home, they find the mailman dead on the porch. A woman, curious about how her husband would react if she left him, decided to test him. She wrote him a letter saying she was tired of him and wanted to leave. Then she placed the letter on the bedroom table and crawled under the bed to hide, waiting for him to come home. When her husband finally walked in, he saw the letter on the table and read it. After a long pause, he grabbed a pen and added something to the note. Then, whistling and humming, he started changing clothes, dancing around as he did. He grabbed his phone and dialed a number. From under the bed, she could hear him chatting to someone. "Hey, babe, I'm just getting changed. I'll be with you in a sec." He laughed. As for the other fool, well, she finally figured out I was fooling around, so she left. I never should have married her. I wish you and I had met sooner. He hung up, still humming and dancing, as he left the room. Heartbroken, the woman crawled out from under the bed, wiped her eyes, and staggered over to read what he had written at the end of her letter. Through blurry, teary eyes, she read, "I could see your feet, you idiot. I'm going out to buy bread." A poor, elderly woman was desperately searching for a way to avoid eviction. As she rummaged through her belongings, she came across a dusty, old copper kettle. Intrigued by its appearance, she dusted it off. And bam! A genie erupted from its spout. The genie, floating in midair, gazed at her and said, "I've seen your struggles, and I will grant you 3 wishes." The woman, stunned, thought for a moment and said, "I've grown old and worn. I wish to be young and beautiful again." Bam! In an instant, the old woman transformed into a stunning young beauty, radiant and full of life. Thrilled by the change, she said, "Genie, I want to live a life of grandeur. Make me rich." Bam! With a snap of the genie's fingers, her humble cottage vanished, replaced by an extravagant mansion. Her ragged clothes became a gorgeous gown, and her worn shoes were now sparkling heels. As she marveled at the transformation, the genie stood solemnly and said, "You have 1 wish left." The woman thought for a while. Suddenly, she felt something brush against her leg. It was her old cat, now clearly frightened by the grand transformation of their surroundings. Looking up at the genie, she said, "This cat has been my faithful companion for so many years. Please turn him into a human man so we can spend many happy days together." Bam! In a flash, the cat disappeared, replaced by a tall, handsome young man with dark hair and striking features. The woman, immediately enchanted by her new love, rushed into his arms. As she gazed lovingly into his eyes, he whispered, "Too bad you had me neutered." My wonderful girlfriend and I had been dating for over a year, and we decided it was time to get married. But there was one little thing that kept bothering me: her beautiful younger sister. She was 22, always wore tight miniskirts, and rarely bothered with a bra. One day, she called me over to look at the wedding invitations. When I arrived, she was alone and looked at me with a serious expression. She whispered, "I've developed feelings for you. I can't help it. I want to make love to you just once, before you marry my sister." I was completely stunned and couldn't say a word. She then told me, "I'm going upstairs to my bedroom. If you want one last wild fling before committing, just come up and get me." I stood frozen in shock as I watched her head upstairs. Once she reached the top, she tossed her panties down the stairs at me. For a moment, I just stood there, completely speechless. Then, with a sudden clarity, I turned around, opened the front door, and headed straight to my car. As I walked out, to my surprise, my entire future family was standing outside, clapping and cheering. My future father-in-law, tears in his eyes, hugged me and said, "We're so proud of you. We couldn't ask for a better man for our daughter. Welcome to the family." And the moral of the story is, always keep your condoms in your car. The IRS decides to audit Grandpa and summons him to the office. When Grandpa shows up, the auditor isn't surprised to see him accompanied by his attorney. The auditor looks at Grandpa and says, "Well, sir, you seem to live an extravagant lifestyle, but you claim to have no full-time employment. You explain this by saying you win money gambling. Honestly, I'm not sure the IRS is going to buy that." Grandpa grins and replies, "I'm a great gambler and I can prove it. How about a little demonstration?" The auditor hesitates but says, "Okay, show me what you've got." Grandpa says, "I'll bet you $1,000 that I can bite my own eye." The auditor thinks about it for a moment, then agrees. It's a bet. Grandpa pops out his glass eye and bites it. The auditor's jaw drops in shock. Grandpa smiles and says, "Now, I'll bet you $2,000 that I can bite my other eye." The auditor, now realizing Grandpa isn't blind, takes the bet. Grandpa removes his dentures and bites his good eye. The stunned auditor realizes he's just lost $3,000 with Grandpa's attorney as a witness and starts to get nervous. Grandpa, with a sly grin, asks, "Want to go double or nothing? I'll bet you $6,000 that I can stand on one side of your desk, pee into that wastebasket on the other side, and not get a drop anywhere in between." The auditor, now twice burned, is cautious, but thinks there's no way this old guy could manage such a stunt. He agrees to the bet. Grandpa stands beside the desk, unzips his pants, and try as he might, he can't quite make it. He ends up urinating all over the auditor's desk. The auditor, ecstatic, jumps for joy, realizing he just turned a major loss into a huge win. But Grandpa's attorney groans and buries his face in his hands. The auditor, noticing, asks, "Are you okay?" The attorney replies, "Not really. This morning, Grandpa bet me $25,000 that he could come in here and pee all over your desk, and that you'd be happy about it." A cowboy on a long journey rides into a dusty little town to wet his whistle. He ties his horse out front, strolls into the saloon, and orders a drink. The locals eye him suspiciously as he sits at the bar. The bartender pops the cap off his beer and sets it down, muttering, "If I were you, I'd drink that fast and be on your way. Folks around here don't take kindly to strangers. They like to mess with them." The cowboy tips his hat and replies, "Is that so?" Then calmly sips his beer like he owns the place. 10 minutes later, he finishes up and heads outside, only to find his horse is gone. He storms back into the saloon, pulls his gun, fires a shot into the ceiling, and growls, "All right, which one of you low-down, no-good sidewinders stole my horse?" The place goes dead silent. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. He holsters his gun and says, "All right then, I'm going to sit back down and have myself another drink. And when I go back outside, if my horse still ain't there, I'm going to have to do what I did back in Texas. And let me tell you, I really don't want to do what I did back in Texas." He calmly returns to the bar, orders another beer, and drinks it slow. The room stays quiet. Tense. When he walks out again, sure enough, his horse is tied up right where he left it. As the cowboy mounts up to ride off, the bartender rushes outside and calls after him, "Hey, mister, I just got to know, what did you do back in Texas?" The cowboy turns, gives him a long look, and says, "I walked." A beautiful young woman stands alone at the edge of a pier in New York, staring down at the water, clearly contemplating something drastic. A sailor walking by notices and shouts, "Hey, don't jump! Whatever's going on, it's not worth ending your life over." She turns to him and says, "I've had it. Nothing in my life works out. I'm done trying." The sailor pauses, then says, "Listen, my ship's heading to Europe tonight. If you want, I can sneak you aboard, hide you in a supply room. You'll get a fresh start in a new country, and, well, full disclosure, I wouldn't mind a little company on the way." After a moment, she nods. Why not? Can't be worse than this. So he smuggles her on board, tucks her away below deck, and over the next week, brings her food, water, and nightly companionship. But one day the storage room door swings open, and it's the captain. "What the hell is going on here?" he barks. The woman steps forward and confesses, "One of your sailors rescued me from suicide, smuggled me aboard to take me to Europe. And in return, well, he's been, sleeping with me." The captain raises an eyebrow and says, "Lady, this is the Staten Island ferry." 3 dogs, a Chihuahua, a Yorkshire Terrier, and a Great Dane, are lying in adjacent cages at an animal hospital, waiting for their turn. The Chihuahua sighs and says, "What are you guys in for?" The Yorkie says, "You first." The Chihuahua replies, "My owner's kid had a birthday party yesterday. A dozen screaming kids running wild. A couple of them cornered me and started poking me with balloons. I warned them, but they didn't listen. I snapped and bit one." The Yorkie winces. "Oof. What are they doing to you?" "Putting me down after lunch." "Damn," says the Yorkie. "Same here, kind of. My owner's son is a little terror. Always pulling my tail, shoving crayons in my ears. Yesterday I finally lost it and bit him too. Let me guess. Yep. Put down after lunch." Both dogs turn to the Great Dane. "What about you, big guy?" The Dane stretches and says, "Well, yesterday morning, my owner went to work. I was chained in the backyard. His wife came out to tend the garden, short sundress, bending over a lot. I don't know what came over me. I broke the chain, ran up behind her and, well, mounted her." The other 2 dogs gasp. "Holy crap, what are they going to do to you?" The Great Dane shrugs. "Oh, nothing much. I'm just here to get my nails trimmed and maybe some breath mints." Tim was a nervous chicken. He rarely left the coop and spent most of his life trying not to be noticed. Blending into the background was his specialty. As his 18th birthday approached, his one and only friend, a sheep named Bob, insisted it was time Tim came out of his shell, so to speak. "Come on," said Bob. "You've never even been to a pub. Let's change that." After much clucking and hesitation, Tim finally agreed. That night they headed to the Crown and Anchor. Tim shuffled in, eyes down, heart pounding. But just as he reached the bar, he bumped into a mountain of a man, Greg. Greg's pint hit the floor. The bar fell silent. Greg was infamous. You didn't bump into Greg. You didn't look at Greg. You avoided Greg. Greg turned, towering over Tim. "What the feck do you think you're doing, wee man? How to turn you into a chicken Kiev?" Tim froze, wide-eyed, feathers trembling. Greg took a step forward, but stopped. Something in Tim's terrified expression, maybe the pathetic little wing twitch, gave him pause. With a grunt, Greg snarled, "Right, I'm going to give you one chance. Replace my pint, now." Tim scrambled to get another drink and, shaking, offered it up with both wings. Greg snatched the glass, took a swig, and said, "Next time I see you, you'd better cross the street, or I'll be having chicken chow mein for dinner. Now get lost." Tim bolted. Months passed. Tim barely left the house, but one day he finally worked up the nerve to visit Bob and collect some things he'd left behind that night. As he turned the corner onto Bob's street, there he was, Greg. The same cold glare, the same lumbering gait, so Tim, the chicken, crossed the road. The local bank near a large prison had a problem opening their safe one day. Seems that the mechanisms working the combination failed, so they called the prison to seek help. The prison had a convicted safecracker in custody. They released him under guard and took him to the bank to see if he could open their safe. The convict worked on the lock for quite a while, but finally he was able to open the safe. The bank president was delighted to see his safe opened without having to have it ruined in the process. He turned to the safecracker and said, "Thanks for helping us out here. How much do we owe you? The Safecracker replied, well, the last time I did one of these jobs, I got about $100,000. Carruthers and Blenkinsop had been lost in the desert for days. That morning, they'd finished the last of their water. I say, Carruthers, muttered Blenkinsop, lips parched. I fear our number's up. Steady on, old boy, replied Carruthers. Never say die. You never know what's over the next dune. And wouldn't you know it? Over the next dune, they spotted a bustling Arab market shimmering in the heat. Summoning the last of their strength, they stumbled into the bazaar and approached the first stall. Good day, croaked Carruthers. Do you have any water? Alas, no, said the stallholder, but I offer this exquisite dessert. Sponge cake and fruit at the base, creamy custard in the middle, whipped cream on top, finished with colorful sprinkles. The two parched Brits admired it, but declined. Lovely, but we're afraid it would only worsen our thirst. They pressed on to the next stall. Water? They begged. No water, came the reply, but I do have this delightful layered trifle. And so it went. Every single vendor offered only trifles. Glorious, creamy, fruit-filled trifles, but not a drop of water among them. Defeated, Carruthers and Blenkinsop staggered away from the market, back into the blazing sun. After a long silence, Carruthers said, Well, Blenkinsop, we may be doomed. But what a strange market that was. And Blenkinsop nodded wearily. Yes, it was a trifle bizarre. At 75, Bert finally treated himself to something he'd always wanted. A pair of soft-spiked golf shoes like Freddie Couples. He was so thrilled with his purchase that he wore them straight home from the course, eager to show them off. Strutting into the kitchen, he beamed at his wife. Well, Margaret, notice anything different about me? Margaret, 73, and halfway through her crossword, glanced up. Nope. Bert frowned, disappointed, and marched off to the bathroom. Moments later, he reappeared completely naked. Except for the new golf shoes, he stood proudly in the doorway. What about now, Margaret? Notice anything different now? Margaret peered over her glasses and said deadpan, Nope. It was hanging down yesterday, it's hanging down today, and it'll be hanging down tomorrow. Bert, red-faced, bellowed, It's hanging down because it's staring at my new golf shoes. Without missing a beat, Margaret replied, Should have bought a golf hat, Bert. Here's a tightened, punchier take on each problem report exchange, keeping the lost in translation humor while sharpening the wording. Problem. The left landing gear tire is dangerously worn and due for replacement. Report. We almost replaced the left tire. Problem. A cabin fixture has come unhooked. Report. We rehooked something in the cabin. Problem. Engaging the autopilot causes an uncommanded 200 kilometers descent. Report. We couldn't reproduce the problem on solid ground. Problem. There are visible traces of fuel leakage under the aircraft. Report. All traces have been removed. Problem. The DME warning tone is so loud it's practically unbelievable. Report. The DME sound is now set to a believable level. Problem. We suspect one of the cockpit windows has developed a crack. Report. We suspect you're correct. Problem. The aircraft responds absurdly to control inputs. Report. The plane has been sternly warned to behave itself. Problem. A weird tapping sound is coming from the control panel, like a gnome with a hammer. Report. The gnome's hammer has been confiscated. A father of a chef sees an ad in the local paper. Come visit the carnival and meet our newest attraction, the great winged monster. Curious, he heads down to the carnival, paying the $2 admission fee. He wanders around the grounds, passing by games, rides, and food stalls. After a couple of hours, he finally spots a sign outside a small tent. The great winged monster inside. 4 tickets required to enter. So he heads to the nearest ticket booth. The sign says, tickets, 25 cents each, 50, for $10. Being low on cash, he buys just enough for entry. 4 tickets, please, he says, and hands over his dollar. With the 4 tickets in hand, he enters the tent and is immediately greeted by a carny. Right this way, right this way. Inside the tent, the old man looks around and asks another carny, Where can I see this great winged monster? The carny points to a door with a 3-digit padlock and a sign that reads, Guess the code to witness the great winged monster in its natural habitat. 10 cents per guess. The old man is now a bit frustrated. Wait a minute, I've already paid $2 to get into the carnival and another dollar for the tickets. Why can't I see the monster? The carney smiles and explains, well, you see, the great winged monster is quite shy. It built its nest right here in this tent, but it's very sensitive. If too many people crowd in, it'll fly away forever. We can only allow a few lucky winners inside each day. The old man, now getting fed up, looks down at his remaining 2 quarters. With a mix of irritation and disbelief, he turns to leave but shouts out to the carney, I may have paid $2 to get into this bogus carnival and another dollar for those damn tickets, but you've already squeezed $3 out of me. But no way, no how are you getting my last 50 cents. I'm not giving you no tree fitty to see your goddamn Loch Ness monster. A woman is walking through the park when she spots a very attractive man sitting on a bench. He's reading a book and eating some fruit from a Tupperware container. She gathers her courage and walks over, taking a seat next to him. Sorry to bother you, she says, but I know this might be a little forward, but I'd love to grab coffee with you sometime. Flattered, the man looks up and smiles. Sure, but what makes you so sure we'd get along? The woman grins. Well, a couple of things, actually. First, I noticed you're wearing a Metallica t-shirt. They're my favorite band of all time. When they went on their And Justice for All tour, my parents took me to see them in Chicago. I was 12, and it was the first concert I ever went to. I absolutely love Metallica. The man's eyes widen. No way. I saw them too. First concert I ever went to on my own. My best friend Mike and I told our parents, no, we were staying at each other's houses, snuck out, took a bus into the city, and saw them at the World Music Theater. The woman is amazed. That's so weird. If that's not crazy enough, she continues, I saw you're reading Mark Twain. I was a communications major in college, and I actually wrote my thesis on how Twain used satire to comment on the events of his time, comparing him to modern satirical news sources. He's my favorite author. The man almost drops his book. No way. I was an English major too. I specialize in 19th century American literature. This is my 4th or 5th time reading Tom Sawyer. I absolutely love Twain. They're both shocked. It's like a match made in heaven. All right, hold on, says the woman. Here's the kicker. I saw you're eating a prune. Prunes are my absolute favorite fruit. When I was a kid, my grandfather had a farm with an orchard that mainly grew apples and lemons. But he kept a few plum trees for my sister and me because we loved prunes so much. Every year, we'd go harvest them, and by Thanksgiving, he'd have them all dried and saved just for us. They're my favorite fruit. I love prunes. You're eating a prune. This has to be fate. What do you say? The man looks at her, puts down his fruit, and says with a grin, It's a date. An Italian guy is out picking up women in Rome. While at his favorite bar, he catches the eye of a very attractive blonde. They head back to his place, and sure enough, they get down to business. After a long while, he climaxes, rolls over, lights a cigarette, and asks, So, you finish? After a brief pause, she replies, No. Surprised but undeterred, he puts out the cigarette, rolls back on the top of her, and they go at it again, this time even longer than the first time. Once more, he rolls over, lights a cigarette, and asks, So, you finish? Again, after a short pause, she simply says, No. Stunned but still trying to prove his manhood, he gives it one last try, exerting all his energy. This time, after much effort, he finally manages to finish, rolls over, lights his cigarette, and asks, barely able to speak, So, you finish? She looks at him, takes a deep breath, and replies, No, I'm Swedish. An elderly couple are celebrating their 75th wedding anniversary. At the party, one of the grandkids asks the grandmother what the secret to such a long and happy marriage is, as they never seem to argue or disagree about anything. The grandmother smiles and begins to tell a story from when they first got married. Well, she begins, it was our wedding day and we were very poor. We were on our way to our honeymoon, riding in our donkey cart. About an hour into the journey, the donkey suddenly stopped, laid down, and refused to move. My new husband looked at the donkey and said, That's one. After a few minutes, the donkey got up, and we were on our way again. But after a little while, the donkey stopped once more and wouldn't budge. My husband said, That's two. A few moments later, the donkey stood up, and we continued on our journey. But then, after some time, the donkey stopped once more and refused to move. Without saying a word, my husband got down from the cart, took out his gun, and shot the donkey right in the head. "That's 3," he said. The grandmother pauses for a moment, then adds, "I was in complete shock. I screamed at him, 'What did you do? Are you crazy? That's awful.'" The husband turned to her, shrugged, and replied, "That's one."